FM News Talk 97.1.
On-demand audio.
Every Monday, we always have Stephen Yates, who is a foreign policy expert with DC International Advisory, DCIadvisory.org. And, of course, he was also former advisor to former Vice President Dick Cheney. And Stephen joins us on the phone, and we're always happy to have him. Good afternoon, sir.
Hi, Dana.
It's good to talk with you. First and foremost, I was looking at this photo and this of the G8 summit that took place in Maryland just this weekend. Obviously, you followed it as well. And I was looking at this table that had President Obama. It had David Cameron, Francois Hollande sitting there, Dmitry Medvedev. And then, all of these, I'm looking at Marxists, I'm looking at socialists, I'm looking at Democrat socialists. And then I see Angela Merkel, who's not just the only female there, but representing Germany, seems to be the most conservative individual sitting at that table. And I can only imagine the amount of pressure she is under right now, having lost someone like Sarkozy, who was backing her up in the austerity measures, having someone like Cameron be a squish. Everyone's telling Angela Merkel to stand her ground because the president and most everyone else at G8 was pressuring her to kind of fold on this. Do you think that Angela Merkel has what it takes to stand her ground against all of these leaders, new and old now?
Well, she is the last woman standing, so to speak. And, there have been times in our history where it has been left to the mettle of a tough woman leader to keep sort of the ballast on our ship upright and make sure that we're heading in the right direction. I mean, there were times when Margaret Thatcher was concerned that her great ally across the pond might go wobbly. And she would famously weigh in her own special way to make sure that the Great Alliance was moving in the right direction. But you're absolutely correct about David Cameron belonging with the squish side of the spectrum. Angela Merkel, sort of like the old Sesame Street drill of one of these things is not like the others. And I certainly hope she stands her ground, because without the austerity measures, Europe as we've known it is officially over.
Oh, absolutely. And I know that this is the president, especially this made headlines yesterday. He had been pressuring her to ease up on these austerity measures to help out Greece, so on and so forth. When they concluded this meeting, she had not, unless it's changed and unless you have any insight on this, she had not, when the meeting concluded, folded to the pressure from these other nations to ease up on austerity or to essentially give Greece more of a bailout. Correct?
Right.
Okay.
I think that is correct, and I think it's the way it will remain, if for no other reason. She has real responsibility. I mean, there's no one behind her. So all of these other parties go to her for a bailout. It's the way it used to be with the United States.
Right.
And now she knows that officially, to use the Obama lingo, no one has her back. And so without austerity, her country goes down too, and she just can't do that. So I think that if not just for pure courage, out of survival and the fate of her country, which I believe she loves, she's going to have to stick with the austerity programs. But she is getting just bitter pills shoved down her throat from all directions. And I hope that the center right of her country wakes up and understands that a war on their way of life has been declared, and they have to basically stand up for the principles of free market and prosperity and a future of a Europe that's relevant.
Exactly. And especially when it concerns the prospects of Greece remaining in the Eurozone. There's been a lot of discussion over this. And do you think that, are they going to be drummed out? Because at this point, they've begrudgingly gone on with the requirements in order to get their bailout and help with austerity. But it seems that they're not willing to compromise or work beyond that. And the way I don't know how they've remained in it for as long as they have. Obviously, leadership changes and people on the left taking the reins. What are your predictions as far as their continuation within the Eurozone?
I think the whole Eurozone is a giant question mark, period.
Right.
But I think that without responsibility, there should be no membership. So if Greece wants to have people be able to retire at a ridiculously early age, they want to have ridiculously high welfare benefits, then they can choose that and pay for it themselves. And if they're not able to pay for it themselves, the union has this offer. And if they can't accept it responsibly, if responsible other members of the union are there, they should vote them out. And without that demonstration effect, I just fear that it's just a domino effect to other weak economies and high welfare states to continue to drag that currency and that union down. We haven't seen tough leadership out of the Europeans for some time. Merkel may have her back against the wall and will have to impose this kind of discipline, and to a degree, on much lesser states on our periphery.
Right.
But the future is in the crosshairs for them. And I just don't see any responsibility coming out of Greece right now.
Right. And shifting gears to NATO, it's been a busy weekend for foreign leaders. Francois Hollande basically made his public debut at the NATO summit, and he reiterated his call for all of the austerity to be eased up on, for them to cut some of these austerity measures as well. And then he also promised to break with NATO. He wants all French troops out of Afghanistan ahead of all of the other alliance members. How is this going to affect the mission in Afghanistan? We've pretty much telegraphed to terrorists, this is when you guys can act up again. This is when we're leaving. How is Hollande's promise to pull troops out of Afghanistan ahead of everyone else? How is that going to affect the overall mission? I think, what is it? It's 2013 coming up that we'll be pulling out.
Yeah, it was supposed to be 2014, and it's inched up to 2013. And sadly, I think that the mission in Afghanistan has been deeply, deeply undermined by weakness all the way around. The president telegraphed a departure at the same time he announced the surge, and now leaks from his inner circle to friendly journalists make clear that they had no intention of following through on the surge anyway. They had a political decision that they wanted out of the war entirely. And so I understand the fatigue. I understand the frustration. I understand that we don't have great partners in really difficult parts of the world. But this is absolutely tragic, given it's tied to 9/11. And I'm afraid that this signal from the French, it just sends a rush to the exits on other parties. No one wants to be the last one standing there alone,
right,
sacrificing their soldiers. It's just tragic in my mind. I certainly hope the Afghans are able to stand up more on their own. But, boy, we're just putting a lot on the line in terms of the risks in making this faster. And you sure don't hear our administration protesting these moves.
No.
And so silence is a form of consent,
right,
I would say.
I wonder too if it's a ploy that, if using the argument that, well, France is leaving early, and just as you were saying, we don't want to be the last people over there, so maybe we should up our withdrawal because France is leaving, and other people, as a result of France's decision to leave way earlier than other alliance members, everyone's going to push it up. Is that just kind of pinning it on France? Is it a scapegoat move, or am I reading too much into it?
I don't think you're reading too much into it. I think there is an element of the scapegoating there, and it's basically just trying to shield responsibility. I mean, my general view of Afghanistan and our troops' mission there is highly personalized. I've known General John Allen in past service together. He is one of the absolute finest Marines I have ever met. He's dedicated to his mission, doesn't put politics anywhere into the calculations of what he's doing. The fact that they have announced already that he's going to be moving to the European Command sort of troubles me, in the sense that I think he is truly committed to doing what's necessary in that region, even with a lack of political support from home. As long as he is there, given confidence I have in him personally, I worry about the mission, but I'm confident in his ability and his judgment. Taking him out of the equation early next year really makes me more worried about it.
Well, that's a very good vote of confidence for him, and that definitely, I can see that. Stephen Yates, we always appreciate your perspective and in bringing us insight to all of these issues every Monday. Thank you for your time as always.
Anytime. Thank you, Dana.
Okay, take care. Stephen Yates with DCI.org, or DCIadvisory.org, the DC International Advisory. This is his wheelhouse. He's been doing this for quite a long time.